Oh, hey everybody, back with Shooting the Shit with Susan, and we're going to talk today. I'm going to shoot the shit with you today about the 3 reasons why women lose interest in sex in long-term relationships. I am a specialist in women's sexuality. I've been a sex therapist for over a decade, specializing in women's sexuality, and I also largely work with couples. So I just want to put that out there for those of you who don't know me. I do come with a lot of experience, and also being a woman, I have learned a lot of things over the years in my studies, but also in my personal journey. And I have a question here from JL, who wrote into me a few weeks back and really made a really good point that I think is going to be really fun to share with you today and dive into some of these 3 reasons why women lose interest in sex in long term relationships. So I'd love to start. I always love to get feedback from you guys and what y'all want to shoot the shit about. So drop a comment below. Let me know what kind of topics you'd like to hear, what questions you have. Would love to address those in some future lives that I do here with you. But JL wrote into me and he said, and this is such a good question. I love this. Many people in the coaching/relationship world say, quote, you are responsible for your pleasure and fulfillment. Well, dandy, he says. I'm married to someone who views sex as a have to and occasionally a need to. So it's very functional and transactional. So, how do I find fulfillment in that experience? Extramarital activity is out of the question. And hey, JL, hey, cool. So good to see y'all here. Yeah, so JL, I want to say thank you so much for writing in. And you are absolutely not alone. Actually, 90% of the couples who come to me are experiencing something similar. I am a specialist in women's sexuality, specifically low libido women in long-term relationships. And I would love to speak to some of the things that can happen over time. Now, I don't know, JL, what it was like for you at the beginning of your marriage. Has it always been that way? For some of us, it's just always been that way. Your wife has maybe always been kind of low libido or just not that interested, or she sees sex as a chore. Or maybe it's something that has happened over time as hormonal changes have happened, or the context has changed and you now have kids or a new stressful job. A lot of things can happen that affect our desire for sexual intimacy. And however, what I'm going to offer you today, hopefully, is going to be some things you can kind of take a look at, see if any of this lands, and some solutions that you can start to use right away to possibly make some changes there. So let's start with number one: not enough time to warm up the female genital anatomy. So, what I find a lot of us don't know is that the woman's body, our genitals, our female sexual anatomy, we have the same amount of erectile tissue in our genitals that a man has in his penis. A lot of women don't know this. A lot of men don't know this. It's just basically a lack of education that we're talking about. And what the studies have shown is that a woman's body, female body, on average needs about 21 minutes of foreplay, warm up time, before she will be consistently orgasmic during sex. Now, I'm assuming that study was based on penetrative sex. We know there's a lot of other ways to be sexual other than penetration. We also know that the majority of women, in fact, prefer external stimulation to penetration. That is just a fun fact that's out there. You can research that. Um, but manual stimulation using the mouth, a lot more women tend to reach orgasm from that form of stimulation than from penetrative sex. So it's my belief that all women are capable of reaching orgasm through penetrative sex. But what can happen because we don't understand how the female body is wired, and we have these different structures in our genitals where that erectile tissue is, that we need a little more time often to get all of those parts really warmed up and really ready for penetrative sex, but also just for that consistent access to orgasm. It takes time. And so 21 minutes is really just the average. It could take an hour. It could take 45 minutes. For women, it literally might only take 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Every woman is different. And here's the fun part with women: we're different from day to day and what time of the month it is and where we are in our lifespan and our fertility cycle over the lifespan, much less our fertility cycle over the month, because the fluctuation in hormones can drastically affect our sensitivity, our desire for sex. So to understand, like, what do you do? How do we address this? So this is actually a tip for the women out there as well as for the men out there who are in relationships, sexual relationships with women. What we need to learn to do is how to slow down, how to really allow our bodies to have some time to get out of our head, to let go of the day, and to really drop in and begin to just feel what's happening in the body. To start to move at a slower pace, finding where the turn on already lives. Where's the pleasure already in the body? Now, this might not initially be a desire for sex. Another thing, one of the things they have done in the studies too have found is that arousal comes before desire. And so a lot of times we're waiting for desire to show up and we don't know why it's not showing up. But where we need to be focusing on is how do we generate arousal? Now that can be a very complex there's a lot in that as well, just how we're wired for our arousal styles. If you haven't done it yet, go get my sexual speedometer test at sexualspeedometertest.com. You can see where you fall on that high libido, low libido scale and what you can do if you're in a situation or relationship where you have that libido mismatch. How do you actually get that low libido person to kind of drop into their arousal? And also, how can the higher libido person understand why are they higher libido? And how do you work with your high libido if you're with someone who maybe has a lower libido or what we might call a slower accelerator or high brakes? It's called the dual control model of sexual arousal. Sexualspeedometertest.com. Go get a copy of that. It's a great thing to just understand where you and your partner are, where you are yourself if you're not in a relationship. So, learning to slow down and moving at the pace of your own pleasure. So, pleasure in the moment for her. So, I'm going to speak to you, JL. I don't know if you're here with me live, but this is for you. Her pleasure might not necessarily be that she's desiring sexual stimulation. Her pleasure in that moment you just might need to help her slow down. Find what is her genuine desire. Is it just to cuddle? Is it just to connect? Is it maybe talk for 5 or 10 minutes? I'm really not a fan of like, let's just sit and chitty chat and talk. That just keeps us up in our heads. We don't want to stay stuck there, but sometimes it's very, very helpful. And I find, especially for women, to be able to get all that stuff out. When we talk about a problem, what they've actually found in some studies that have been done is we produce oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. So it might be to help her just talk about her day. Just inquire how she's feeling. How are you? What's going on? Take an interest in that, and helping her to relax. For women watching this, what we want to do, and this is so hard because we tend to be natural caretakers and pleasers, we want to learn to really slow down. Can I slow down and really just find where is my pleasure right in this moment? Can I ask to receive that? Or can I ask my partner to slow down? Can I ask for what I need in that moment? Can I learn to advocate for my own need to be met? Can I give that to myself? What happens a lot of times as women, we get really worried that we're taking too long. We don't want to upset our partner. Or because of cultural conditioning, we think, oh, he's ready to go. I'm not, but I'm gonna go along with it because I don't want him to lose his erection, or he might get upset with me if he loses his erection, or he might get frustrated if I take too long. So we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as women to kind of just, do the deed when our bodies aren't yet fully there. So that's one thing that you can explore and think about and see if that lands. All right, number two. Number two. Here's another really fun fact. Depending on what study you consult, it depends. There's different research out there. The average length of intercourse is 2 to 7 minutes, and that is due to male ejaculation on average occurring within the first 2 to 7 minutes of sexual intercourse. 2 to 7 minutes. You guys, that is not a lot. That's not a long time, especially when we look at what's needed for most women, many women. Now, certainly not all. Anytime I say most or many, I don't mean 100%. So I know there are people out there that don't fall into the box, okay? I get that. But most women, what the studies have shown, 21 or more minutes of foreplay before their body's really going to be fully ready, before those tissues are engorged, before it really is ready for sex, for penetration, and to be able to reach orgasm consistently. Combine that with the average length of male of penetration, ejaculation happening in the first 2 to 7 minutes of sex. So, what can happen with that is that mismatch can cause, over time, a woman to kind of find there's not a lot in it for her because if her body's not really warmed up and sex is over almost as soon as it begins, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, take your pick. There's not really enough time for her to really drop into her full pleasure and really the full spectrum of what's available to her to be able to really reach orgasm. Now, sometimes women can reach orgasm very quickly, but for a lot of women, the majority of women, it usually takes a little longer than that 2 to 7 minute time frame. So she's not really able to drop into the fullness of what's available for her with her pleasure and able to really reach her orgasmic potential. What happens over time is she just starts to kinda it becomes something she just does to keep him happy. So, JR, when you said, it becomes I have to, like, the obligation, the obligatory, "Well, I have to keep him happy," or, "I need to because he wants it and we haven't done it in a while, so I'm just gonna do it because I wanna keep my husband happy." I've never heard a man say that they love it when their wife has sex with them out of obligation. Like, said no man ever, unless that's your kink, which is totally fine, but I've never heard that in the couples that I work with. So what do we do with this? Well, what you can do, men listening, learn how porn use, by the way, is something that can kind of lead to that quick ejaculation. Also just becomes a habit. I kind of want to talk about the cause of this real quick. It becomes a habit. Especially if you're just used to masturbating to solo self pleasure, it can become a habit. It's really just, trying to get it off and get to the ejaculation so you can relax for the day and feel good. That actually creates a habit in your sexual nervous system where the ejaculation happens very quickly to the extent where you might feel like you're not really in charge of it or in control of it. So, what you can do is learn how to slow down. Something that helps wonderfully with that, and this is going to be very, very simple, but deepening your breathing, learning how to train your breath to actually just breathe deep into the belly. We tend to have unconsciously very shallow breathing up in the chest. So, learning how to slow the breathing down, bringing the breath all the way down into the belly. And I would recommend just practice this, not when you're masturbating, not necessarily during sex, but just throughout your day. Practice deepening that breath, expanding the belly, using the breath to release tension in the front side of the body, and taking that breath all the way down into the genitals. That's really is the first step to learning how to last longer in bed. For men, is the deepening of the breathing. As simple as that sounds, that is the very first step. And then I would recommend to you during masturbation, during solo practice, start to practice what you might have heard of something called edging, where you start to build your arousal very slowly. Get rid of the idea that every masturbation session is about reaching an orgasm or having an ejaculation, because again, that drive towards ejaculation is a habit and it can be a little bit unconsciously addictive for men. I have talked with men, I have had partners that even admit that and say that it can be a little bit of an addicting habit where it just becomes habit. So you have to start to slowly retrain your own nervous system so that you can start to last longer, so that you can, during sexual intercourse or intimacy, even take breaks. It is okay to lose an erection in the middle of intimacy. There are many other ways to stay in that erotic connection while the erection just takes a little bit of a pause and it can come back online. We have a lot of associations around that we have this expectation that a man just has to be hard all the time, constantly hard and stay hard. And if that's not happening, then something must be wrong. And we make a big thing out of it. I would say just, like, get that out of your awareness entirely. Let it be okay to have an erection come and an erection go. I will share with you in a future live is a really awesome practice of what you can do when there's not an erection. I'll give you some tips on that maybe the next time that I go live. If you wanna hear about that technique, drop it in the comments. Just say, "technique." Drop the word "technique" in the comments, and next time I go live, I will teach you that practice. It's really lovely for what you do when there is no erection. It's great to have some options. All right, number 3. The number 3 cause is women not being able to fully own her own pleasure, not being able to fully relax into her own body and really become immersed in her own pleasure and her own sensations. As women, we have a lot of psychological programming around being the givers and the nurturers. Now, especially JL, if your wife is like, I have to do this to keep him happy, she is absolutely in a giving mode. She doesn't see what's in this equation for her. There's not much in it for her. And so she's going to do it just to keep you happy. What we want to do is how can we start to help her sink into her own pleasure? Women watching this, what I want you to think about is how can you start to take more responsibility for your own pleasure, to be able to give yourself permission, not just to take more time, but also to feel your own enjoyment, to follow your own turn on, to become immersed inside of your own experience rather than externally focused on, oh my God, what do I look like? What do I sound like? What is he thinking of me? Is he happy? Am I giving enough to him? And to turn the awareness inward onto your own sensations, to sink inward and downward and become immersed into your own enjoyment and to what's happening inside of your own body. It's very hard for a lot of women to do that. So, JL, what you can do to help her with that, just gently bring her awareness to her body. You can invite her, tell me what you're noticing right now in your belly. What do you feel as I touch you here on the face? Like, have her actually start to notice what sensations are available to her. That's really the very first step is becoming aware. And a lot of us are very disconnected from that. We're so out there. Part of the challenge, too, for a lot of women is that it's very vulnerable. And if a woman is afraid of being emotionally vulnerable, or energetically vulnerable, a lot of times what she'll do is she'll deflect. She'll put the attention out there. Let me put the attention on him. Let me be the giver. That way I don't have to become vulnerable. It's one of the most challenging aspects of feminine sexuality and embodying a feminine essence is the vulnerability piece. And also, if there's stuff happening in the relationship, like maybe you had an argument a few days ago or a disagreement earlier, or maybe she's stressed from work, like that all is part of the environment, that internal storyline that's going on inside her head. If she doesn't feel like she can fully relax with the person she's with or in the environment she's in, that also is going to impede her ability to drop fully into her own pleasure and her own experience. So, learning how to slow down, focus on the sensations of the body is a really, really lovely way to start to strengthen that capacity for her to sink into her own pleasure. You could even give just a sensual, do some nice, loving, non-sexual touch, maybe with some warm oil, and just bring her awareness to the point of contact where your hand is touching her body. Or for women, you could do that. Ask your partner to give you a massage and pay attention, bringing your awareness to that point of contact on the body where the hand is touching the body. Can you bring all of your awareness just to the sensation? So in sex therapy, there's a term that they coined for that called sensate focus, where our awareness, our focus, our attention is just purely on sensation. But it's not a new concept. There's a whole system of yoga in India called Yoga Nidra that is entirely about cultivating that capacity to simply focus on sensation. And why that is a yoga, an entire system of yoga in and of itself, is because it's a type of meditation. It's a type of practice that takes us out of our thinking mind, out of this head where we're in the future, in the past, or anywhere but here now. And it takes us directly here into the present moment. So it's a beautiful and powerful practice, whatever you call it. It's extremely valuable to learn how to just pay attention to sensation. It can really be the gateway in to deeper states of pleasure and orgasmic experiences. So, as far as being responsible for your own pleasure and your own fulfillment, we all are responsible for that. And I know how frustrating it is when you're in a relationship where it seems like we have to get our pleasure from someone else. And if that person isn't, giving us what we want, we're not getting the sex that we want or the sexual experiences that we want, it can feel so frustrating, especially when you feel like there aren't any other options. But part of the reason that so many sex coaches and relationship coaches, why we say that, and as a sex therapist, why that's one of the biggest game changers that we can really experience, we really understand what that means. That means that you are responsible for the experience that you're having. So it doesn't mean that you have to go look outside the relationship. It doesn't mean that your wife is there to necessarily have to provide that pleasure for you. Pleasure is something that happens. It's a response within our own body, inside our own bodies, not something someone gives to us. So what you do with that is you learn. Like you wrote to me, you asked this question. I'm here giving you some ideas and some things that you can consider, some things that you can apply, some things that you can learn, some ways that maybe you can get your wife to take an interest in, to start to become maybe a little bit more curious. Because if you have a problem, it's also her problem. I'll always tell that to couples. If your wife's got a problem, it's also your problem. If your husband has a problem with it, it is a problem. It's a problem of the relationship. So it absolutely does matter. And it's really just a matter of pinpointing what is it that's actually going on. And how do we navigate that? Because there absolutely is a pathway for your wife into experiencing and discovering what's in it for her. And it sounds like she just hasn't found that yet. She might not even realize the importance of that. Most likely, she probably doesn't because she is in this giving role and just trying to keep you happy. So that's how you take responsibility. What do you need to do? How can you be responsible for this is the experience you're having? And so now what do you do with that? How do you take that and ideally maybe make some changes in the relationship with your wife and maybe make some changes also in your relationship with yourself and what you're doing with yourself and how you're relating to your own sexuality, how you're showing up sexually for yourself as well as with your wife. So that's really what that term means when you hear coaches like myself, therapists like myself say that you're 100% responsible for your own experience and for your own pleasure. So thanks so much for joining me live today. Please drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of today's conversation and let me know what do you want me to shoot the shit on with you next time we go live on Shooting the Shit with Susan. Let's get it on. Thanks so much, y'all. I'll see you next time.